Dear friends of Pride Business Forum, good afternoon and welcome at our first webinar of the 2022. Today we will focus on coming out, not only at workplaces. Coming out is a metaphor for a process that LGBT plus people self-disclose their different sexual or gender identity to their friends, families, colleagues at work or at school. And basically we come out every minute we meet someone. In fact, the coming out is very private and internal process, and each individual is processing it differently. Some are coming out very early in their life, but some are struggling to come out whole their life. It depends on various factors, and we will talk about those today. Coming out is also a very selective process. We by ourselves decide whom do we come out and in what circumstances. And workplaces are very often environments where we decide not to come out. When we look at the data that are available, over 50% of LGBT plus people in the Czech Republic decide not to come out in their workplaces. And reasons are because they are afraid that the environment in where they work will actually worsen, or reactions, or they are afraid of the reactions of their colleagues, or they are afraid that their career process will be hindered by their coming out. So the reasons why they don't come out in the workplaces are different. But that's why it's important to talk about it and to talk about how employers can create the environment that is safe for LGBT plus people to be themselves. And that's what we are going to talk about today. My name is Česlav Valek. I'm Director of Program of Pride Business Forum, and I will be host of the day today. And I am honored to welcome a distinguished panel of speakers today. Michal Pitoňák is a researcher from a National Institute for Mental Health and founder and chairman of Queer Geography, a non-profit organization that focuses on popularization of the evidence-based science. Hello, Michal.
Good afternoon to everyone.
Vašek Horecký is a language training specialist at Škoda Auto and also a mentor at crisis and suicide prevention portal that operates in the Czech Republic for the last 5 years, and it's called Zbarvou.cz. Hello, Vašek.
Hello, everyone.
And Cook Law is employee experience specialist and lead at Pride at SAP. Hello, Cook.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me here.
We were supposed to be joined by Irena Smetačková from Charles University, but unfortunately, COVID is influencing not only offline world, but also virtual world. And she got sick of COVID last night and she was unable to join us. We wish her a good health. And just before the webinar, I agreed with Michal and Vašek that they will try to do their best and cover bits of her presentation. So some of her knowledge is shared with you today, even without her presence. But I hope that we will be able to repeat this webinar maybe in half a year, and we will be joined by Irena at that time. Now, what can we expect today? In this hour, we divided this session to 2 parts. In first part, we will hear from our speakers about their experience and sharing their knowledge. And during their presentations, you already can actually write the questions or comments that come up when you listen to them. For that, you can use great tools that Zoom is giving us, either the window which is called Q&A, and you can write the questions there or comments, or click on the palm, raise a hand, it's called. And in the second part, when we will have a Q&A session, we will be able to answer those questions or react to your comments, or Sabina will unmute you and you will be able to tell your questions or comments directly. I will be reminding you throughout the sessions that you can actually ask those questions, so you don't keep those questions till the end. Now, without further ado, I will give floor to Michal, who will start. Michal is, as I mentioned, is a researcher at National Institute for Mental Health, and he's a top expert when it comes to minority stress in the Czech Republic. And today, Michal will be talking about what it is, minority stress, but also how does it influence LGBT+ people and their coming out. Michal, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Czeslaw. So I will share my screen. I hope you can see it. You can see the presentation. I see you waving. So hello, everyone, once again. Thank you for having me within this presentation and workshop. I think it's a great opportunity for us to learn something more about not only the coming out, but maybe what is conditioning it within the society. And that's exactly the reason for why I study minority stress, because it is part of the answer to a question to why LGBTQ+ people have to come out or should come out, or call it whatever you want to call it. So let's start. Minority stress is something that is called minority because it is a stress that is not affecting all people, but only some people. And those people are the people affected by stigma. And that kind of stigma can be very different. There can be various minorities, various people who are stigmatized within the society. But all of them are enduring these additional stressors that are additional to all those stressors that we all have to endure within our everyday lives, in our workspaces, in our relationships, in our lives. But these are an added baggage. This is something we have to deal with, especially because of that stigma. Characteristic of minority stress is that it is always chronic. You can't switch it off. You can't switch it on. It's something that is always there, and you can very hardly minimize it and very hardly escape it. It's always socially based. It's literally connected to the culture and to the society. And good thing about that is that some cultures, like for example, workspace cultures, can be changed and can be influenced. So this is something where you can do something about it. And it is stable because it is, as I said, it's difficult to change it. And usually when it's within the outside bubbles, within the wider society, it's relatively stable when you meet all those people, all those different actors within the society. So everything that is connected to minority stress is something that requires those who are affected by an extra effort, some extra adaptation. People have to invest more resources, more psychological resources to deal with it. And there are, of course, several types of those stressors that cause and require call for these extra adaptations. And these work on multiple scales. So let me become more concrete. I distinguish between three levels of minority stress, but it can also apply to stigma. So it's at this point, we don't have to distinguish the two, actually. But the stigma at the structural level in forms of different laws, policies, attitudes of cultures, like, for example, different holidays, etc. These all legitimizes the stigma, and they legitimize the minority stressors at the lower levels. So, for example, if there is a law that is only available to certain groups of population, like, for example, the marriage, then of course you are telling a message that there are some parts of the society, e.g. Same-sex couples, who can't reach the level as those who are non-stigmatized. So this is a structural level example of minority stress. People are aware of those differences. And because people are aware of those differences, they of course influence the interpersonal level, because some of the people within the society are privileged. And that privilege is often something that people are not aware of. So they just think of themselves as normal. But when they see that some of the people do not have access to those institutions, and now, for example, we can have an example of gender change within the official documents. So then they feel that they have more authority over some issues than others. And this can lead to discrimination and victimization, for example, like dead naming or using different pronouns that people would want them to be used. So that is an interpersonal level. And at the individual level, this all sifts down to people's self-understanding, their self-concepts, their feelings of self-worth. And so they can escape stigmatization, discrimination, victimization, or generally they can negotiate their lives by changing their behaviors and putting some energy into those adaptations. So, for example, they conceal themselves. This is the foundation for why we have coming out, because those layers that I was talking about have constituted what we call the closet. Only non-heterosexual and non-cis people have the closet. The concept of coming out would have no meaning without the stigma. So, for example, that is the effect on the individual level. But let me go to some of those aspects again. So at the macro scale in the world, we see those differences clearly. This is a map that we developed at Queer Geography that clearly shows the differences of attitudes of how people value the non-heterosexuals and gender diverse people around the world. So this is, of course, a proxy, because I'm using a marriage equality, a proxy of equality of people on the gender diversity basis. So it's not so correct, but it can tell you a bit about how diverse the world is when it comes to valuing people and their diversity. And this is something that we can register on the scientific data. For example, there are migration flows from countries with high stigma, with a lot of discriminatory practices and discriminatory attitudes, toward countries where there's much more freedoms for gender and sexual diversity. So this is clearly a fact that is important for LGBTQI+ people. So I already spoke about those minority stressors at the individual level. So now you can imagine all those effects, like the concealment of sexual and gender minority status, or that people negotiate their sexuality differently within different spaces, such as workspaces. But of course, then they may have they may have developed a change in their cognitive understanding in how they think about people's thinking about them in general. So they may be more sensitive to rejection, for example. And you might have heard a lot about internalized homophobia or internalized homonegativity. What differentiates these minority stressors from minority stressors that are also faced by other minorities like ethnic or religious minorities is that those minorities typically do have support of their families and their relatives, whereas the sexual and gender minorities are typical, quite surprised, if I use the term, which is in my mind now neutral one, to the best. So they are not counting with this kind of difference, and they cannot receive some support at crucial stages. So since Irena is not with us today, I've included this slide so that I can tell you a bit more about how we think typically about the coming out. So typically we distinguish between the inner coming out, so that you recognize, first everyone has to recognize that they have some feelings of attraction. And what is important is that the research and data shows us that initially people recognize that they can like someone regardless of their gender, and they do not feel shame for any type of attraction they feel. It's just they feel naturally. It only takes after they encounter and understand stigma, when they realize that this is something that is being not accepted within the society, and that something that is deemed as a failure, for example, something that's generally stigmatized. So then the closet appears, the feeling of difference and the conflict, which we typically call a phases of that may lead to self-acceptance. It's a challenge. It's something that requires that adaptation to that stigma. I'm different, and I need to cope with it in a way so that I can first accept myself. So that's the inner coming out idea, which within this scenario, which is like overly generalizing, and I'm very a big critique of these typical developmental coming out models, because all of us are different. All of us live in different societies, different environment, and those norms influencing us are intersecting with our different access of difference. So this is something that's very reductionist, but it gives you some general sense. So after you self-accept, you may or may not choose that you disclose about your gender or sexual difference to others. And here, of course, it is very kind of, people can think about that this is the disclosure is the typical way how the coming out ends. But again, if I see data, I see that only about 2% of people do identify with some of the LGBT plus or other sexual or gender diversity spectra. So some of the people just don't identify, don't disclose, because they just start living as people with diverse sexuality, but they don't, or gender identity, but they don't identify with that. So the disclosure phase is something that, again, has not much backing in data, because it only is related to some people. But in general, all of us do face the challenge of having to integrate within the society, within our friendship cycles, and within the people with whom we live. So this is a general, very reductionist way of seeing the coming out. But I think it is sensible to understand that some of those milestones do relate to most people. So coming back to the minority stressors, one of the ways in which we can see how much stress people endure within different countries is that when we can see the data showing, for example, answer to this question: to how many work colleagues are you open about being LGBTI? So this question was asked by the Fundamental Rights Agency within their LGBTI study, and you can see that to all colleagues within the working environment, it's only 18% of Czechs being open, whereas it's 37% of Dutch and only 7% of Serbs, for example. So there are huge differences, and Czechs are somewhat in the middle of Europe, but I still see these numbers as pretty low. So what causing it? What's causing it? Why is this so low? So for answering that question, I would again bring attention to that the LGBTI people are aware of their environment and they understand what the general culture around them is like. So this is one of the questions that may give you the answer for why people do not disclose in our country so much and why they do disclose much more in Netherlands, for example. So here it is the general public's view of their comfort. They are feeling totally comfortable with two men holding hands in the society. So again, this is something to show you the picture from the other side. This is how the culture views the things. And so this is something then where most of my research starts. This research was conducted at Yale University and Karolinska Institute in Sweden and the US, and it shows a clear picture between two processes. One of them is the concealment, that's the y-axis, whereas on the x-axis you can see the stigma. There's been measured by a complex way that I don't have time to deal with today, but you can here see that there is a clear relationship between stigma and concealment. So the more the country is stigmatizing LGBTI people, the more concealed are people. Whereas you see where the Czechs are and you see where the Slovaks are. And it is in our power, in our societies and in our organizations to do something about that, for example. Here, another relationship within the same study. And here I show you something that I consider very important, and it's the opposite relationship between the stigma and life satisfaction. And life satisfaction is one of the most, the strongest predictors of psychological well-being. So almost all measures do associate with life satisfaction always. So when we here see that people who are living in countries with a lot of stigma have also less life satisfaction. So generally then I can say that when there is a stigma within the society, it leads to minority stress. And where there's a lot of minority stress, it can conduct psychological problems. And when these psychological problems do not have been attenuated by other processes, for example, by social support or support by some organizations and groups, etc., then there is a higher risk for developing mental health issues, and that can lead to very serious, irreversible health outcomes, such as these. Higher depressive disorders, anxiety, suicide rates, substance use, other disorders, physical health, including cancer issues, etc. This is something that we already know. Of course, the associations is something different from causal pathways, but I don't want to steal too much time about that. But I just want to tell you that, of course, within the research, we are not trying to say that A leads to B, but there's a whole ABC in between, but we are working on that. And I'm happy to answer questions later on. But there is a chance to change these things. And there is an example from Sweden. Over time, here you can see that in Sweden, the society has, and the politicians have slowly contributed to lowering of the minority stress or the structural stigma, which in this case lowered the minority stress as shown within this research by a very good group of researchers gathered again around those institutions I already told you. And here you can see that the disparities between the psychological distress between gay and lesbians between 2005 and 2015 and heterosexuals has been neutralized by only 10 years of changes in the structural stigma, for example, by introducing the same-sex marriage law, etc. So it is possible to reduce these health disparities by making a positive change. So before I thank you for your attention, I want to show you a very important map. And this map map shows you a picture of what is the proportion of the given societies who have friends or acquaintances who are gay, lesbian, or bisexual. In our country, it's only around 1/3 of people who actually know someone who is not straight, which is like a very low number. And from all the research that I've been through, I can say that whenever a country is capable of increasing this number, then it leads to positive change. And one of those environments where people meet new people is, of course, workplaces. So, and over those places, you have much more control than I do. So thank you for your attention. And I will just stop sharing my screen.
Michal, thank you very much for your presentation and interesting data that you shared with us. And now we will turn to Vašek Horecký, who is a mentor at the suicide and crisis prevention portal S barvou ven that exists in the Czech Republic already for 5 years. And it is one of the basic practical tool helping people with their coming out. But Vašek is working at Škoda Auto, as I mentioned, and Škoda Auto is often perceived as a male-dominated the factory or company. And I would be maybe interested to hear the story. How was coming out in your case in this workplace? So Vašek, floor is yours.
Hello again, and thank you for the introduction. And also thank you, Michal, for his presentation, because I've just realized that what he described on a very scientific, in a very scientific way. In our project, we basically deal on an everyday basis with the people, like the self-acceptance or acceptance in general, and integration. So these are the basic topics that we deal in the project every day. So thank you for that, because it was interesting to me. Well, yes, I work in Škoda, and well, Czeslaw is interested in my coming out in the company. Well, it was quite well. I just realized not long ago that it was quite unique, because of course I'm not a guy who just goes around and talks about sexuality and things like this in general. My closest colleagues knew about it, some of them, not all of them, of course, the closest ones. But about 2 months ago, we held a conference or an event within the Škoda that was supposed to talk about the project S barvou ven. And I was one of the panelists, and the webinar or the event was broadcasted within the company. So basically, I came out to the company as a whole. And what was interesting that afterwards, my colleagues watched, and some, because I used to teach within the company, a lot of people, some people were not, let's say, shocked by the fact that I'm gay, but by the fact that I used to be married and I used to be a priest. So that was more shocking than the fact that I was actually gay. And so it was well accepted. So so that made me quite happy. So that was my coming out to the whole company at once. Or whoever watched and whoever was interested or watched the program later. But yes, I've been part of the project S barvou ven for the past, let's say, I don't know, 5 years. It's quite hard to keep the track. And within the time, me personally, I've had a lot of clients. Just to explain what it is, I don't know if all the participants have heard about the project. So what we do is I don't know how many, but about 20 other people are as mentors, trained mentors, and we anonymously help people who talk to us, send our messages, and they can come with their life story, and we just basically give them our experience we had with our coming out earlier in life, or whatever experience we have in life. When you visit the website, you will most likely see a picture of us with a little description of our story, and you can choose if the story relates to you and to your life story, and then you can come and you can just chat to us, and there will be no judging, there will be acceptance. We'll listen, we will share our experience, and hopefully help that way. From my experience, I know that we have helped a number of people, and I just have some numbers here just to share some statistics, but about 25% clients who turn to us just come to us to basically make sure they understand their identity. Either it is gay, lesbian, or transgender, or bisexual. They just want to talk about this. About 20% is about how to talk to their people at home, to the parents, the friends. Some want information. There is bullying involved, and occasionally, but it happens as well, and it happened to me as well as one of the clients, that there are some clients who come with us and have some dark thoughts about suicide. So yes, and we talk to them, and we try our best to just share our experience, because sometimes and very often the fact that they start talking to us is their first experience, that they actually tell someone that they are gay, lesbian, transgender, you name it. And it's a really relieving experience, and they already start feeling much better after this experience, that they have been able to tell us and share their story with someone. Why me and the project? Well, years ago when I was trying to come out, there was nothing like this on the Czech internet or anywhere. I was looking. So after my coming out and the story that is around the project, I don't know if there is time to share the story, but there was the announcement. I saw the news that this project is coming out, and I just wanted to be a part of, because the help I felt I needed during my coming out, I wanted to offer this help to somebody else who might need it. And yes, I've been a part of the project for the past 5 years, and it's doing a lot of good. So I'm happy about that. Sometimes I'm asked the question, what kind of clients tend to help? Me personally, with my experience, in general, I get people who are older, maybe who are already married or in a heterosexual relationship, where children might be involved, and they just realize that they just basically live a different life that they should be, and so they come to me. Or experience with faith and religion and church, and so they look for support as well. And also I talk to transgender people, because basically coming out in general as a gay man is very similar to coming out as a transgender in the way of coming out. Of course, if they need some extra help with the process, they need to talk to a mentor, and we have available mentors as well for this transgender issues. So these are basic things that I do, and I'm quite happy that Škoda Auto has joined the project, or helped the project in a way to promote it. And so even though it's perceived as a very manly company, not all the managers and not all the people in Škoda are men, fortunately. Fortunately. So And so there are great women behind Škoda as well, doing a great work and giving great support to Škoda. And I'm quite sure that some of them are here today listening as well.
Super, Vašek. Thank you very much. I can see that you are already using our chat box and Q&A not you, but the audience, to ask the questions. And Vašek, your story got a lot of praise. You are a hero for many people. And Stephen from Toyota wants to invite you for a talk in their company. And just to everyone, I can tell you that when Vašek is telling a full story, then it's fascinating. But one outcome of your insight is that if you know anyone that might struggle with coming out, go to zbarvou.cz and direct them to this website. You can also support the initiative financially. And now Cook Law is lead at Pride at SAP, which is LGBT employee resource group at the SAP Czech Republic. Evidence shows that ERGs, employee resource groups, are a great tool for actually spreading or pursuing LGBT workplace equality. And Cook today will tell us how you do it in SAP, and also how is your group helping with to employees that want to come out. Cook, the floor is yours.
Yep. Thank you. And Vašek, thank you for sharing that story. I think oftentimes we learn more through personal stories. So yeah, thank you for sharing that. As Česlav already introduced, I'm part of Pride at SAP, part of the leadership team. And today I will talk about how the ERGs can help in the coming out process. So first of all, just to mention it again, the coming out process is unique and different for everyone. And there is no steps or rules that applies to everyone. And what I will share in the upcoming 10 minutes, it's pretty much based on what we have done at SAP. So before I jump into what are the impacts of ERGs to the coming out process, I would like to first mention the importance of having support from the top level, from the company level. That is having policies, right? Because at SAP, when employees are hired, we are asked to sign that we have read the anti-discrimination policy, and we are also via the onboarding process reminded that diversity and inclusion is part of the company culture. And we are also made aware of the different ERGs within the company. For example, we have the Business Women Network, we have Autism at Work, and obviously we have Pride at SAP and other ones. And I think this is really important because people know from the very beginning that they can actually bring their true, authentic self to work. So next, I will talk about the actual impact of the ERGs in the coming out process. And again, this is based on my experience with SAP here in the Czech Republic and my experience with Pride at SAP. So the first factor, it's the presence. And by that, I mean simply having a Pride or an LGBT ERG in the company. That's a permanent reminder that this is part of the culture. The next factor I have here is support from the leadership. And I do not mean leadership as of the leads of the ERGs, but I mean the support from executive members from the board area, or it could be, in our case, in the Czech Republic, our biggest sponsors are our country directors. So the leadership team at SAP, they usually take part in our initiatives, and we usually ask them to amplify our events and initiatives. And as an example, recently we announced the internal benefits for registered partnership, for equal benefits for registered partnership or marriage. I still get confused with those. For all employees, regardless of gender or orientation. And this was announced by each of the leadership members to their organizational unit. The other factor that I want to talk about is engagement. Within our ERG, we do a lot of, again, activities so that people from the community as well as allies have a space to come together, connect with each other, support each other, and more importantly, have that sense of belonging. Then the next factor that I have here is awareness, which I think it's one of the most important ones. And because I feel that oftentimes we create these ERGs within our companies, and oftentimes the people who are part of it are already part of the community or are big supporters or allies. And what we need to focus on is on creating more awareness or educate others on topics related to LGBT. For example, we could have sessions to talk about the importance of using pronouns, or we could talk about, I don't know, why are we fighting so much for equal benefits, right? And why it doesn't mean less benefits for others. Or a topic like this, coming out, but from a different perspective. Like, we could talk about how difficult it is for somebody to come out, just so that they have, you know, that other perspective. And then the last factor I have here, which is related to the story before me, it's about mentoring. For SAP, we have an application where anyone can be a mentor, or anyone can be anyone can be a mentor. You can find a mentor in that application, and you're matched with somebody to discuss a specific topic. It could be actually a one-on-one, when you can just hear, you know, an experience from someone else and learn from that, so that in the end you share the knowledge and you also become you can also mentor each other. On the same mentoring pillar, we also have guidelines. For instance, we at SAP have a gender transition guideline. It helps employees that are going through the gender transition journey, and they can find valuable information on how to proceed, how to reach to HR, or how to disclose it to their managers or to their teams, and so on. And lastly, we have another resource for our employees, which is an external collaboration. It's called the Employee Assistance Program. And this is for those who require a little bit more of professional support in dealing with either coming out process, or it could be any type of mental problems or financial problems even that they're going through. and they can reach out to this program, and they are paired with somebody who is a professional on the topic. So yeah, those are the few factors or few things that we focus on as the ERG at SAP. And what I want to talk about is that, you know, we have been talking about these factors, but the most important thing that I haven't mentioned is the importance of psychological safety, right? Because only when people feel that they are in a safe environment, they will actually, you know, come out, and they don't have to do so. They don't have to come out, you know, with a big public announcement or, you know, raise their hands that I'm gay or lesbian. It could be something so simple, such as in a meeting, you talk about your weekend and you talk about your significant other, and you don't talk about it as your partner, but you actually give him or her, you know, a name, you give them a pronoun, an identity. So yeah, in the end, I think our focus is, as an ERG, as a company, is to just create that safe environment, and things will just flow from there. So that's what I wanted to share from a corporate standpoint.
Wonderful, Cook. Thank you very much for your insight. How can LGBT employee resource groups help to LGBT plus employees be themselves at the workplace? Now, questions are already piling up. We have approximately 15 minutes, so let's go for it. And before we go for it, I'll just remind you, you can ask your questions in Q&A box, or you can raise your palm and we will unmute you so you can ask it live. First question is, first two questions actually are for Michal regarding your data and some discrepancy or maybe misunderstanding of the data you presented. So Michal, maybe you could try to touch upon the answer.
Yeah, thank you for that question. It is a very important question. So it relates to the data I showed you about the decrease in psychological distress in Sweden over the past, the period of 10 years from 2005 to 2015, where there was an example of that the gay and lesbian distress reached almost the same level as the heterosexuals distress. Those differences were within the statistical error, so we can't say there was lower than the heterosexuals or higher. It was the same, but the bisexuals distress stayed high. And I think that is an exactly important proof of that. Although we use the acronym LGBT, etc., we are very much forgetting about the B and about the specific issues related to their stigmatizing, because stigma related to bisexuality is profound. It's coming from both straight and LGBT, etc. communities, and it is under-researched. So, for example, I can already give you a sneak peek into a result of one of my studies. It's actually first study where we are comparing the psychological distress in Czechia between the heterosexuals and non-heterosexuals. And it's bisexuals who have the worst situation, and especially bisexual women. And the answers to that is complex and probably has to do with undervaluing the very importance and the very validity of bisexuality as such. So I don't want to steal much more time, just to scrape the surface now.
Thank you very much. I hope, Karel and Ryan, that answered your questions. Now, next two questions are for Cook. First is regarding how any tips how you are getting leadership on board and how do you get them engaged with your LGBT ERG?
Absolutely. So again, this is on SAP's point of view. Luckily for us, as a company, DNI is kind of like the backbone of everything we do. We even have like a global office just focuses on DNI. So it cascades down all the levels. So speaking of DNI, it's something that, you know, as I said, it's like the backbone of everything we do. And how do we get them more engaged? At least here for our Prague office, it's simply inviting them, asking the leaders to amplify whatever we do. If there is an event, an initiative, we send out the communication and then we reach out to them directly. Hey, can you send this out with a message, inviting everyone to join the sessions? Because what we have noticed in the past is that everything we do as an ERG, oftentimes they're like our community that joins, but we need to reach out to everyone else just to raise that awareness. So yeah, just reach out to them directly and invite them to give them the megaphone.
Yes, I just would like to remind for those of you who are Pride Business Forum members, before COVID, we were doing it every year, and now I hope that we will come back to it. Once a year, we are organizing so-called executive cocktail, where we are inviting leadership of member companies to actually network. And often that helps that executives from your company see other peers from other companies and they can talk this executive language among themselves. Now, Cook, another question for you is regarding your position of the Pride at SAP, whether it's a local, global, or regional, and how do you manage the differences between different regions and countries?
That's a good question. So ERGs in SAP, at least for Pride, which is the second largest, there is a global office, right? But we also have regional and country ERGs. Like for instance, what I'm running or leading here is Pride at SAP Czech Republic, right? And whatever we do, we often come with the core members or extended members, and we just discuss what is valuable or what is relevant to us here, because there has been a lot of, you know, criticisms or discussions that oftentimes things are very, well, depending on where the country, where the company is from, we often hear that, you know, topics are usually very US centric or German centric. So to answer your question, we have a global and we cascade it down to our local level.
Super. Thank you very much. You still have a chance to ask some questions to our participants. So please don't hesitate to type them or to raise your hands. And Vašek, I have one question to you. Your role in Škoda was praised in the chat box. You were already invited to Toyota to share your story. But my question is, what would be your advice to people that may have someone that they suspect that has a different gender or sexual identity, but is not sharing it? How those people, their co-workers, their colleagues should react, in your opinion?
Well, I think that those who don't want to come out are experiencing some kind of fear. Fear of not being accepted, fear that they might affect their position at work and that their work would be looked down upon too. So there might be various reasons why they don't want to come out. And even from my own experience, you know, life experience, you basically, as a LGBT person, observe what other people do, what they say, what their opinions are on things, what comments do they make about, I don't know, it can be from equality and marriage for all and pride issues. And so if the people just start speaking badly about it, they'll be very highly sensitive to see what they actually say back. But if they hear and see positive comments, they are more likely to feel welcomed and open up and come out of the closet. So basically it's the comments and the things we say. And so in this way, just be kind and accepting, and because you never know who is sitting next to you.
Yeah,
if I could add to that.
Sure.
If I could add to that, I think it's also really important to keep in mind there is one thing about coming out, and then the other is outing someone, right? It's not our right to ever say somebody is a lesbian, because maybe that person, you know, share it with you, but you shouldn't go around the company and just saying, you know, she is actually a lesbian, I confirm that, right? So it's really important to keep that in mind also. And in the end, it always, I think it goes back to psychological safety and the environment you are in. If you're safe to come out, people will most likely do it.
Yeah, and in the same time, I don't think that it's wise to actually confront this person with the question: Are you gay or
is
are
there
you lesbian?
right? Is there right also to share or not share?
Also, also add just a very quick one, because already Václav and Cook spoke about this. Either outing others or knowing that they are listening, I would add that just treat everyone, every group, everyone as if they were LGBT or might be, because within a group, it's just statistically very probable that there are some LGBT people. If you have group more than 10 people and more, then it's like really reaching, it's always, people are always there. And we are just not seeing them, and we are making them to conceal themselves more by being more stigmatizing, or making them less concealing themselves by making ourselves less stigmatizing.
Those are great advices. Now we have Martin Duchoň, who raised the hand. So Martin, you have a floor to ask the question or make a comment.
Okay, hello everyone. I would like I see a phenomenon which we are noticing nowadays, and it is that it is to be overcorrect in the society. And I feel it on myself that it is a little bit stressful for me, as we now some people describe themselves as a cis man, transgender, and people, they don't know how they should ask. And I have the feeling that they are closing in. And I think this is also possible to have an impact on the coming out, as the people, they don't know how to act in the society. And even though they are afraid to ask, and what I see, that is a psychological effect of the COVID, that we have been locked at home and we are losing the touch how to discuss with the people. And I would like to ask Michal Pitoniak if he is noticing this behavior as well in this, or there is probably a study about it, how nowadays phenomenon to behave correct in the society, if it has also additional stress on probably on the coming out. Thank you.
Maybe I can already enter. I think this is an excellent question and very important one. I think the answer is complex, and first we need to develop sensitivity and understanding that the LGBTQ issues that we are discussing are not only about LGBTQ plus people, and these also relate all people within the society, regardless of their sexuality. And so when a language, for example, develops, then when we know that we have new terminology, cis and non-binary, trans and fluid, etc., then we create a discrepancy in understanding. And when people do not understand each other, we have a very big common ground for conflict. So recognizing that we are not all knowing and that people do not have access to this information on a regular basis is part of the conversation and part of what needs to be recognized. It's like I can't require, for example, my mother to understand these issues. I can't require it out of anyone. So that's the part of the issue of the correctedness, that people feel, and now I mean all those people who are not really knowledgeable in this from various reasons, and some of those reasons are related to stigma. They don't want to do, they suppress it, they really want to continue with the stigmatizing, but most people are just not knowledgeable about it. And this is an issue that we need to tackle. Of course, it's the culture, it's changing, but again, these are cultural also issues. There's a lot of geopolitics, and especially in corporations, you are dealing with those geopolitics, I'm sure. So even my research is related to this. I just finished a chapter about these issues and how to probably deal with them. It's I would really call it an anxiety in straight and cis people and all those who do not know it. And we should pay attention to this anxiety, because they have a right to have that kind of anxiety because they don't know. And we need to recognize and to be able to have that conversation, because one thing is having an anxiety from not knowing, and another thing is being prejudiced, and it's very, very different things. So I'm hoping this is answering some of your question.
Michal, thank you. And I think personally that the role of LGBT employee resource groups often is about educating one another. And often those groups can organize the educational session for the rest of the employees with these kind of aspects, or just telling to people not to be afraid to ask. Because we don't know everything, you know, and what is important, however, is that we are not afraid to ask and make it right, so we are not offending everyone. Well, thank you very much for a great session. Thank you to our speakers. This was very insightful and fascinating. And I am sure that we will repeat the session at the end of the year. For those of you who are following our webpage, you know that in February we have 2 other events. On Valentine's Day, we have a movie night, charity movie night, showing the documentary film Zákon lásky. It's not the most emotional and cheerful movie. However, it is a movie that you can I invite you to watch, because it shows our fight for marriage equality. And as Michal mentioned, once the marriage equality is adopted, it's actually improved the situation of LGBT plus people in the country. It's a charity event, so the tickets or proceeds are going for marriage equality campaign in the Czech Republic. And at the end of the month, on 22nd of February, I would like to invite you for a great event. It's called Pride Business Forum Voices, and it's basically 7 people who are going to share their story, same as Václav shared today. There are people from different environments, from different corporations, and they will share their story or coming out story. And as we learned today, often storytelling is much more powerful than data. So please join us for those 2 sessions. Follow Pride Business Forum. Thank you very much for attending the session, and have a great day. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.